Jamaica, colloquially known as the land of wood and water, is no stranger to droughts and floods. Consequently, water security is of premier focus amongst Jamaica's prime agenda towards achieving its developed nation status. What you should know is that whether or not Jamaica or a section of Jamaica experience a drought and or flood rests on the groundwater capacity or the groundwater availability within that given era. When I mention groundwater, I'm not only speaking about the water underneath the surface, I'm also making mention of water that can be seen on the surface. So, our rivers, our springs, water basically that flows on the surface during rainfall within our urban areas or within culverts within our agricultural zones. All of this basically is me speaking or referencing groundwater sources. Now keep this in mind. The rock type of an area or the nature of the geology gives indication as it relates to whether or not this particular area can have relatively good access to groundwater and basically if this area could be prone to flooding and or droughts. If you live in limestone areas, expect that water will seep predominantly underground and in essence getting access to the groundwater may be more tedious than in areas of non-limestone regions. If you reside in areas of volcanic bedrock, then you may see a significant amount of water on the surface in springs, in minor streams, or even surface rivers themselves. If it's a case that you reside in an area that basically has a mixture of limestone or carbonate zones as well as impervial or impervious zones such as the volcanic regions or volcanic bedrock, then you may experience water on the surface just the same, and in some regions you may experience water not being on the surface. Now when I combine this inherent geofactor of our groundwater with, let's say, the weather dynamic, then this is where we have the likelihood of this area experiencing drought and or experiencing floods. So if it's a case where weather points us towards experiencing a high degree of rainfall, then what you should expect is if you reside in an area that has volcanic bedrock and or impervious layers relatively close to the surface, you should expect relatively fast flooding to occur, such as flash flooding, or you could expect to experience river flooding, especially if it's a case that you live near to rivers in the context of floodplains, as an example. Um, Now, on the flip to that, if it's a case that we are experiencing dry weather or relatively lower than normal rainfall, then you residing in areas of, let's just say, carbonate zones or limestone zones, then you would notice that the riverbeds themselves become dry. So dry riverbeds is a key characteristic of dry areas or dry time within limestone or carbonate zones. Similarly, you may experience a reduced volume of water in our riverbeds that flow over volcanic and or impervious zones within the country. By now, you should realize that groundwater or the subject area of groundwater and us as a country managing our groundwater as a resource is highly complex. This is where now it makes great sense for us to have our agencies in the form of the National Water Commission, as an example, as well as the Water Resources Authority, assist us in managing our water in terms of its availability, in terms of its quality, and ensuring that as best as is possible, we have access to it throughout the region of the country. So all sections of the country having access to potable water. Because what you have to keep in mind is that with Jamaica being significantly carbonate or limestone, it basically means therefore that not all regions of the country is geared towards experiencing the relatively high volume of water, whether it be during rainy season and or dry season. So the NWC coming into place, applying engineering methods towards creating pipes to channel water from high flow regions to low flow regions and towards catchment areas is a very good practice towards assisting the country maintain and or improve its water security capacity.